Hi, thanks for joining me and welcome back if you've been here before. So today's video is really kind of inspired by following on from a very recent video I did on Thievery Corporation's The Richest Man in Babylon. And just to recap on that, I've had this CD since 2002 when the album first came out. And recently, it was released on vinyl many years ago, but it was, very expensive to buy and not freely available. But just in the last month or so, this was released. Double LP, absolutely exquisitely packaged. There we are, $29.99. 2 LPs, absolutely beautifully packaged, but sonically, it was a real letdown compared with the CD. And as any of you who regularly follow the channel will know, I'm quite a vinyl fan, and I think an analog man overall would be true to say, because I'm, also have a great love for tape, which can often even eclipse vinyl. And so it's not often that I kind of come across CDs that outperform the vinyl equivalents, and therefore it seems a bit of a, sticks in some people's throats, I think, and they feel like I'm sort of betraying the cause of vinyl. But there's a very simple reason I like vinyl, and that is because it sounds better. Now that's a sweeping statement, I know, and in the instances where it doesn't sound better, I get the CD. It's as simple as that. And in those instances, I will quite openly talk about it. And, those of you who don't like that, well, that's just the facts of life. This is true. Not everything on vinyl is better than everything on CD, and vice versa. And, so this video, really, I'm going to be showcasing 10 CDs where, from a vinyl lover's perspective, because I am a vinyl lover, vast majority of my music's on vinyl, but from a vinyl lover's perspective, I'm going to be showcasing 10 CDs that I simply couldn't get rid of. Okay, so there's no particular order to these 10, and because we've already mentioned it, I'll start off with the Thievery Corporation, or to be specific, the Thievery Corporation. There is no "the" there. The Richest Man in Babylon. It's a beautiful album, very kind of chilled. I just absolutely love it, and I have done a video, as I say. I'll put a link to that up here. But it's a beautiful album, and I would definitely recommend, if you want to check it out, well, check it out. Put a search for the Thievery Corporation in on YouTube. That's what I tend to do if I'm investigating a band that's new to me, and check out some of their live stuff. It's captivating, and there are sort of threads, this sort of melding of different cultures and ethnicities of music that I find that utterly captivating, and actually, they fit very happily with my worldview, so to speak. But Thievery Corporation, The Richest Man in Babylon, number 10. Okay, and as I say, there is no particular order to this. Now, what comes in at number 9 is the Help CD. Now, this is a 1995 charity project. The charity is known as War Child, and it was set up to provide aid to the children, sort of casualties and orphans, if you like, from the Bosnia-Herzegovina war that was going on in that period of time. And War Child, the charity, is still going and has done a few other projects in the meantime. But this was a beautifully inspired project about a thoroughly good cause. Basically, what happened was, in one day, the mission was, in one day, a whole bunch of artists would go into, not all the same recording studio, wasn't like a sort of a band-aid thing, but they, you know, a whole bunch of artists went into recording studios all around, I think the UK, and laid down a track in that one day. Now the whole thing was then mastered by Brian Eno, but basically these artists, they'd go into the studio and they'd lay down a track, and they would you know, they'd waive all their royalties and copyright and all the rest of it, so that 100% of the profits, the proceeds, went to the charity. Now, you know, it sounds like a very admirable thing, but when I list some of the artists on here, I mean, you've got Paul McCartney, but I think very specifically there's one track which I think actually closes the album, which is Come Together, the Beatles song. And it's performed by Paul McCartney, Paul Weller and Noel Gallagher. So kind of 3 generations of, you know, that sort of Beatles scene type thing. It's just stunning. But, you know, okay, so Paul McCartney, Noel Gallagher, Paul Weller. You've also got Radiohead, and I'll come back to that. Sinead O'Connor, the Manic Street Preachers, Massive Attack, Stone Roses, Suede, Blur, Neneh Cherry. The list goes on and on and on. It's a phenomenal album, and because everything's recorded just in one day, there's an immediacy and a rawness to this which is just absolutely spellbinding. And I think the standout tracks on here, obviously I've mentioned the Come Together, which is just stunning, but the Sinead O'Connor track, she does she sings the Bobby Gentry song Ode to Billy Joe, and it's stark raw beauty is incredible. And then Radiohead, and this will lead on to the next entry in this list, which actually partly sparked this whole video. Radiohead performed the song Lucky. Now this came out a year or two before OK Computer, so we had the Bends, and I was a big fan of Pablo Honey with Creep, and then the Bends, and then the next thing to come out was the song Lucky on here, and it is just startlingly good. It's raw, it's sort of naked, the grit and angst in it it's phenomenal. Okay, and as I say, this will lead on to the next record I'll be talking about, but this is one stunning record. Now 95 this came out, and I think it was only in 2020, after many years, it was released on vinyl. Now I have to say that the vinyl is sort of slightly warmer, slightly fuller, but it genuinely, I don't prefer it. I prefer the sound of the CD. So, you know, in essence of what this video is about, Help, the 1995 War Child charity CD, is one of those CDs that I would just say, you know, you need to hear it. I'm never going to get rid of this, and it's a phenomenal reason for having a CD player. The LP sounds good, it sounds really nice. It's a double album, you know, as I say, the artists on here: Oasis, Boo Radley's, Stone Roses, Radiohead, Orbital, Portishead, Massive Attack, Suede, Charlatans, Chemical Brothers, Stereo MCs, Sinead O'Connor, Levelers, Manic Street Preachers, Terrorvision, One World Orchestra, Planet 4 Folk Quartet, Terry Hall and Salad, Neneh Cherry and Trout, Blur, and the Smoking Mojo Filters, which, as I said, is Paul McCartney, Noel Gallagher and Paul Weller and co. Okay, but a phenomenal record, phenomenal record, but best on CD. Okay, now what follows on from that? So let me get the CD up. Now, back in 1997, Radiohead, who I've already mentioned, I really loved their first 2 albums. For some reason, I bought their OK Computer 1997 album on CD. This is an original CD from that year. And then for sort of 20 years, this is what I knew. Now, I'm a prog fan, as anyone knows, and I would say this is prog, pure and simple. It's you can say it's sort of, you know, it's avant-garde, it's art rock, it's all sorts of things, but it's still prog. Whereas I wouldn't really say the first two albums were, but it's a phenomenal album, but it's one that I kind of struggled with sonically. Now, part of the reason for that is having heard the version of Lucky on Help, which is raw and stripped back and just sort of naked in its sort of truth and honesty. This is, you know, without doubt, a very dense, very rich, very full kind of soundscape, if you like. It is, you know, it's not for the faint-hearted, let me say. So OK Compuetr, I could see from the songwriting, you know, you follow it through, you look at the lyrics, you look at, you know, and all that stuff. It's there's no question, it's one of the greatest albums ever made, in my opinion. I just didn't particularly like the sound of it. I just thought it was just a little bit too dense, a little bit bright, a little bit harsh, a little bit this, a little bit that, you know. But that was based on the CD. Now, I got, a good few years ago now, maybe 5 years ago, I'm not sure, something like that, I finally picked it up on vinyl, and that was this OK Not OK 2017 version, and this is a triple vinyl LP, and if I look at the hype sticker, which I've still got here, all newly remastered from the original analog tapes. Now that made me think, wow, okay, that's got to be worth getting then. And what it doesn't say on the hype sticker, it was remastered by Bob Ludwig, who normally is a name I would have absolute and utter confidence in. But I bought this, and it's a lot sweeter than the CD. It's a lot richer than the CD. The overall kind of thump, the weight of the sort of, you know, the bass guitar probably mostly, and the drums to a degree, is sort of richer and deeper. But I think it doesn't quite sort of time and swing, you know, the pace, the sort of the rhythm, the slip slidey shuffle of the drums. It doesn't quite flow like the CD, and you know, the very dense, rich sort of mix of it, if you like, the soundscape, it just sounds a little bit cluttered and muddled. And overall, I don't think it's very good. Now, there's this, which is a triple album version and a double album version available currently, and I think those are the only two versions currently available on the Excel Recordings label. And frankly, the CD sounds better. So again, this is a case where the CD sounds better than the currently available, I note, album. Okay, now, literally only last week, and this is, as I say, this is kind of what sparked this video. I was round a friend's house, hi Cameron, and I noticed this, and this isn't a UK original, but this is actually a US 2008 reissue on Capitol. So it's you know, it's an early-ish reissue, and I put it on, and this one does sound better than the CD. It sounds quite a lot better than the CD. So, you know, and it fundamentally actually altered my perception of the album. I mean, it really did. And now I have to say that top of my want list is a UK Parlophone original. I say original, you know, it was released in 97. There was a repress in 98, which will be the same metalwork, just, you know, I think to all intents and purposes the same thing. And I think there was, in the 2000s, there was another batch repressed from the same metalwork. So I think as long as it's on Parlophone, you're probably getting the right thing. But an original on Parlophone, or, you know, let's say original or reissue on Parlophone of this, you're talking, you know, at least £100, and for, you know, a mint absolute original first press, you're probably talking £300 or £400. So, you know, it ain't cheap. So again, it's sort of like you can go to all that lengths, or you can spend 30-40 pounds on a modern version, or you can just go and buy a second-hand CD from, you know, these are plentiful, very easy to find, probably for less than a tenner. So, you know, unless you've got hundreds of pounds to spend on an original vinyl copy, you're better off just going and getting the CD. Okay, so the next one I want to talk about is Gillian Welch, Time the Revelator. Now, I've been into this since, well, what was it, 2001 this came out. That was around about the time I first discovered Gillian Welch, and I think she is incredible. US sort of folk with a sort of tinged with bluegrass, absolute beautiful singer-songwriter. She works with her partner Dave Rawlings, who we'll see here, and you know, every Gillian Welch album, you'll see Gillian Welch and Dave Rawlings albums, and you'll see Gillian Welch albums. Frankly, I think they're all the same. They've all, you know, they've all got Dave Rawlings on them, and as I say, if there's one thing that you could level at them, apart from the fact that beautiful songwriters, beautiful singers, beautiful performers. I mean, the guitar work is just, it's the guitar work, the way the two parts harmonise and their voices is just jaw-droppingly good. And the sound quality of this CD is just staggering, okay? And I actually spoke to Dave Rawlings not that long ago, and I know that they're working on sort of trying to cut this, master it for vinyl, and it's proving a challenge because this is so dynamic, and there are challenges in making really good vinyl. It's not the easiest thing, hence, you know, why I think, you know, reissues of the Thievery Corporation, reissues of the radio really are pretty poor. Okay, vinyl, you know, can be exceptional, but it also can be quite mediocre. But this is a beautiful album and only available on CD, and frankly the sound quality is staggering, and anyone who thinks you know, vinyl is the only way, you know, you need to open your minds and listen to something like this. Okay, now following on with the theme of things that aren't available on vinyl, so we have to go to the CD, and that is obviously a big part of my essential CDs. But I'm going to go to a band which I've seen a few times, got the t-shirt, and that is the Imagined Village. Now, the Imagined Village are, it's kind of more like a, rather than a band, I would say it's more like a sort of a cooperative sort of happening. It was certainly put together by Simon Emmerson of the Afro-Celt sound system, sadly passed away a year or so ago. And I think the other sort of core members were Martin and Eliza Carthy. Martin is Eliza's dad. Martin's been performing since the very early 60s, and I think he taught Paul Simon Scarborough Fair, and, you know, has been, you know, inspiring people, as you know, up to and including Bob Dylan, right from the very word go. I've seen Martin, well, I don't know, more than a dozen times in various lineups, and just, you know, a staggering pillar of the folk community. But Imagine Village, it's I've heard them described as sort of prog folk world music, and I think that's sort of describes them really well. And say they're a melding together of think about the Afro-Celt sound system, which, you know, the name says it all, and Trans-Global Underground, again the name says it all, and it's sort of it's really celebrating the sort of multiculturalism within the United Kingdom. And I think that's, you know, it was poignant back then in 2007 when this album was released, and it's equally, if not more, poignant now. And an awful lot of these albums, you could say that. I mean, I think OK Compuetr is bang on up to date for you know, the current world. It really is. But this, you know, the Imagine Village, it's you've got you know, you've got sort of Western drums played by Andy Gangadine, you've got Indian drums played by Johnny Kalsi, you've got sitar with Shima Mukherjee, you've got 3 or 4 guitarists, bass players, cellists, violinists, you've got electronic keyboards. It's just a staggering melding of world and folk art forms and influences from around the world. You've got Billy Bragg on here. You've got Benjamin Zephaniah, the poet, on here. It is absolutely stunning, and I'm going to follow this one up, okay, with their 3rd album, Bending the Dark, which again got the T-shirt. There was an album in between Empire and Love in 2010, but Bending the Dark 2012. The Imagine Village 2007. As I say, I saw them on this tour. We got I think it's Johnny Kalsi, Simon Emmerson, Martin Carthy, Jackie Oates, Barney Morse Brown. Their signatures, they are stunning. It's just the most wonderful, spiritually enhancing for me music. It is you know, one of the best uses of the musical format in terms of composition and intent by a bunch of artists. The Imagine Village, let's say they have got 3 LPs, or 3 albums. There's one in the middle called Empire and Love. I just chose these 2 as my favourites. But along with them, you've got Afro Celt Sound System, Trans Global Underground. All of these acts I would suggest you look up. But while you're on YouTube, put in Get Kalsi, the Imagine Village. Put in John Barleycorn, the Imagine Village, and Cold, Hazy, Rainy Night, for instance. Those are 3 songs that will give you a really great flavour of what this music is about. And I think it's just majestically wonderful. Okay? Now, a kind of similar thing to Imagine Village, vaguely similar, is this album here, One Giant Leap. Now, One Giant Leap was put together by Jamie Catto of Faithless and Duncan Bridgman, and it's a sort of a multimedia project. And it's you get this, there's a running theme here, but this is kind of my psyche, and it's about world unity. And it features artists from all around the world, and I'll just run through some of the people here. But we've got Barbara Maal, Robbie Williams, Micael Stipe, Speech, Neneh Cherry, Eddie Reader, etc., etc. You know, and it's beautiful, captivating. You know, if you like sort of electronic, sort of dancey, sort of chill out music, you'll love this. Now, as I say, it was a multimedia project because there is a DVD of it, which I would thoroughly recommend, but there isn't a vinyl LP. So again, it's beautiful music, it's captivating, it's unique, and you can't get it on vinyl. So if you're a vinyl junkie that's just got your head in the sand and don't want to listen to anything on CD, you're missing out, okay? So another one that I would suggest you really must go and get is One Giant Leap, okay? Now, I'm going to get on to a particularly favourite artist of mine who I have talked about a couple of times before on the channel, and this is in 8th and 9th on the list, or set 2 and 3, depending on how you. There is no order to this list. It really isn't about that. These are by far. There's no way these are the 10 best things you can get on CD by any means. They're just probably the first 10 that sprung to mind of things that I play on CD rather than vinyl. Most of the time I'm playing vinyl. Probably second to that I'm playing tapes, and third I'll be playing CDs. And when I'm playing CDs, these are the ones I go to. So there's 2 from one of my absolute favourite artists, Tori Amos. Now, I'll talk about Scarlet's Walk before, because I've featured that before on this channel, and I'll put a link to that review up here. Now, until a couple of years ago, this was only available on CD, hence You know, if you want to listen to this stunningly beautiful music, you've got to get a CD player or a CD or stream it or whatever. But believe me, it sounds better on CD than streaming. Now, this is a very special sort of limited boxed edition. And I'll just show you what you get in here. So that's the CD, okay. You also get a DVD with a couple of videos of a couple of the tracks. A bunch of postcards and kind of quite cool and groovy map, because it's a sort of a concept album with all the lyrics on the back. So you get a decent amount of stuff. It's a very lovely little package. And frankly, when this came out on vinyl, I was so excited, because this is actually my #1 favourite Tori Amos album, without question. And when I bought the vinyl LP, first of all, the packaging of the vinyl LP and the presentation is quite dismal compared with this. It could have been so much better done. But sonically, it just sounded awful compared with this. It really did. And I know that they've remastered the stream. So if you're streaming it or listening to it on vinyl, you're not listening to this mastering. I don't know whether they've reissued it in CD with a remastered version, but you want to find the original CD of Tori Amos' Scarlet's Walk. It's staggeringly good, okay? Beautiful, beautiful music, and it sounds phenomenal. Now, that was 2002 Scarlet's Walk. The next album Tori released in 2006, I think, 2006, was The Beekeeper. And again, for a good while, I'm not sure I would say this is my second favourite Tori Amos album anymore, but it certainly was for many, many, many years. And it's up there. It's a stunningly beautiful record. I kind of think it works well as a companion to Scarlet's Walk. And anyway, Tori Amos, The Beekeeper. Now, to this date, this still is not available on vinyl. It's just CD, basically. Now, let me just show you this. It's stunningly beautiful music, and believe me, this sounds incredible. And again, if you don't play CDs, if you haven't got a CD player or at least streaming facility, you're missing out on some staggering music. But just look at how beautiful this is as a little presentation, a package of what you get. Okay, it's absolutely stunning, and the music is just. There's some phenomenal and beautiful tracks on here. Really sounds phenomenal. I don't know whether Tori is going to be releasing this on vinyl in the next year or so. If she does, I really hope she does a better job than she did on Scarlet's Walk, because that was real disappointing. Beautiful booklet. That's where the CD lives, in there. Absolutely gorgeous. And then there is also a DVD with videos of a couple of the tracks. It's a stunning thing. And again, if you want to listen to this, the best way of hearing it is on CD. Okay? Now, last, I'm going to just talk about this album here, Nick Cave, live at the Royal Albert Hall. Now, this was recorded at the Royal Albert Hall, as it says here, on Sunday the 3rd of May 2015. Now, I've seen Nick Cave a couple of times, but on this particular tour, which was the Push the Sky Away tour, I don't know whether it was every single concert, but certainly some of the concerts were recorded, and they kind of had a CD mastering and duplication set up sort of, in the back room or whatever. And so he announced this at the beginning of the gig so that you knew this was going to happen. But basically, they recorded the concert, and then you waited around for maybe half an hour after the show, went along to the merchandising stand, and you could buy your own CD of the gig that you were just at. And I think this is a double CD, and it's great. It's Nick Cave live at the Royal Albert Hall, and I was there. And how cool is that? You couldn't do that with a vinyl LP. There's no way you could cut a vinyl LP live and then press it within half an hour of the show finishing. So again, an admirable reason for having a CD player, and you know, if you haven't got one, you're missing out on some staggeringly beautiful music. Okay, and as in the case of The Help and the Tori Amos, Scarlet's Walk, and you know, the Thievery Corporation, certainly doesn't matter how much money you've got, you know, you won't be hearing it at its best by playing the vinyl copies. And you know, with Radiohead, for instance, the OK Compuetr, okay, you know, you can spend well north of £100 and you might get something that sounds better than the CD. But you know, to all the sensible people out there, of which I'm not one, because I would spend north of £100 just to hear something at its best, you know, CDs are not to be sniffed at. They're really not. And I could do this, I could go and pick another 10 CDs and do this video all over again, and I may well do that every few months. Who knows? We'll see how people like this video. Okay, on that note, I'll say thank you very, very, very much for watching, and I will see you all again soon. Bye for now. Bye.